Now we're good.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Joe and Doug Show. We're pumped that you're with us. Beautiful day here in Youngstown. I'm going to apologize in advance if I sound like an attorney. I've been sitting in 2 days worth of nonprofit business sessions, whereas therefore be it resolved that Joe is going to carry the show today. So
henceforth I will forthwith.
Yeah. And no, it was really good. It just some of that stuff seems so cumbersome, and the 1800s calls and they'd like their words back and
on
all
the
that
weekends
stuff.
I read the Federalist Papers, so I know exactly
nice.
what you mean.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm a hoot at parties.
Yeah. We're gonna have a debate on Federalist Paper number 10.
Yes.
But no, it was good. It was for our state Assembly of God, which our church is a part of, and there's 1,000+ ministers and all that sort of stuff, and so it was really cool to get to be a part of that. Get to network. My brother was in town for a couple of days, so I got to hang out with him, which was fun. But yeah, so I literally, business got done at like 4:45. I scooted home, said hi to my wife, and then jumped in the car and came here. And so my brain's still
Did you bring a topic? Do you know what you want to talk with me about? You don't.
Yeah. Joe, we are gonna fly into this. There's actually two things that have been kind of on my brain as of late. One is the idea of handling disappointment, and then the other side of it is, and maybe this goes along with my last 2 days, channeling and kind of working your way through boredom or through slow periods in life. Okay. Because, some folks don't come to events like I just sat through because they're like, well, this is just boring. What's going to happen is going to happen anyway. All 4 or 5 resolutions were passed unanimously. You had a few elections, but there was no surprises, if that makes sense. I don't know, leading up to it, you kind of knew what was going to happen. So whether I was there or not, it was still going to proceed. And so there's some people like, wow, that was probably a waste of 2 days. I like it for the networking side of things, Joe. I was going around shaking all the hands, meeting all the people, because that's just who I am. And so that side was fun. And it was fun to take my brother around and introduce him. Be like, oh, this is so-and-so, and connect him up with some people, which was a lot of fun. But, and then some people live for the business. Like they are getting their name in the minutes. They are seconding something. They are going to, even if they agree with it, they're going to speak. Even though the whole room was unanimous, they're going to speak to that thing. And some people just like that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, that is not me. I don't even like conducting my own business meeting at the church, let alone sitting through someone else's. But you have those things that you have to do, quote unquote, in your job. Sometimes there are those things that are just like, all right, there's protocols, there's some stuff that we kind of got to march our way through. And some of those are boring and some of those are frustrating, but we got to push our way through. So we go that route. Or we could talk about dealing with disappointment. So which way do you want to go?
Let's do both.
Okay.
Because I get disappointed in the dold. So
you love meetings, Joe.
I freaking hate them. I hate them, and I hate them, and I hate them. And I even in school, I can remember being at my absolute worst when my brain's like, okay, I'm going to give you my attention for about 39 seconds. Yeah. And if I can't find a practical use of what you're saying, it's going over there, right?
Yep.
And then by the time you come back and say, Mr. Danye, and ask me a question, I'll be like, have no clue what you're talking about for the last half hour.
Yeah.
So it's a good time for me to fade away into the clouds.
So what do you do in those times? Because I know you sat in a few meetings, and some people will be playing a game on their phone or whatever. Like, where's your brain in those moments?
So I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with the information that I'm being exposed to. If there's anything useful that I can make. Yeah. It's sometimes stupid stuff, like the person is using words that I don't normally use. So let's think of vocabulary. Maybe I can get some new words that I can use out of the vocabulary. Maybe they're a good speaker that we're coming across, and maybe they come across better than I do. So maybe I probably didn't hear what you said, right? But I'm hearing how you said it and, gaining some kind of info from it.
Yeah. Have you ever walked out of a meeting that you felt was like, this is totally pointless and boring for me to be here? Or are you too nice to do that?
I can't think of an instance. I don't go too many of them. I think of excuses so I don't have to go. So I'm pretty good at ferreting that out. But there's a couple of them where when I sit through the meeting and it's 2 hours, you think that could have been an email or you could have been a couple minutes.
Right.
And you're thinking like, okay, well, like why? Why do they make it that long? Is it the pomp? Is it, the process? Are people addicted to just like, or do you not take a serious approach if it's too short? If people think it could have been in an email that nobody takes the information serious. I don't understand it, and I still don't have an answer for it.
Yeah. So there's a world famous preacher, and I heard this story in a back room somewhere, so I don't know how public a story this is, so I'll just go with world famous preacher, tens of thousands of people in their church, speak all over the world, etc., was invited to the Vatican for a meeting with, I don't know, a couple hundred pastors and the Pope, and it was an evangelical council, and this was several years ago. And he comes into the meeting, they get through like 10 minutes, he looks at his entourage, he goes, we're not sticking around for this, because it started getting to the pomp and circumstance and some of that stuff, and they bounced on a meeting with the Pope. And
my man.
and he I was hearing this in the context of like, just because there are some of those things that you feel like you have to do, you don't have to do them, and just because it's an important person or important meeting, like when you know what you're called to do, you know where your time is best used and most valuable. And so then when you get into these situations where you're tied up in, all right, I said yes to this, and here we are. And then it becomes a game of how do I redeem the time? Like some people are going to sit there and play a game. They're going to, send emails. They're going to, whatever to, all right, I got to be here. I'm going to redeem the time. Do you ever do that? Are you ever in a setting like that?
I don't. I think it's a little disrespectful to do that when everybody's taking it serious. I'll leave before I do that, because if I'm checked out, I might as well go full bore.
Yeah, go all the way
That's
in.
right.
You don't want to appear as engaged, but then not be engaged.
Exactly.
It's dishonest. Yeah,
Yep.
That makes sense. I think 3 things are important in a meeting. Number one, having the right people in the right seats on the bus. Super important, because if you have the wrong people at the table, they're going to be frustrated. Why am I here? This doesn't fit my department. You're talking about stuff that doesn't even affect me, etc. So making sure you have the right people in the meeting. And then I have learned this, if I don't have, here are the big goals, and then here's the 3 things I want to achieve in the meeting. If I don't have clear cut, this is where we're going, I know me, I will be out in left field playing with the dandelions. We'll have a great conversation about the dandelions, but we didn't achieve anything.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
And that's going to piss a whole bunch of people off that hey, you gave me an hour of your time. And yes, I feel real good because we talked about the dandelion over here, and isn't that cool? And I did this, and that's so nice. And they're like, yeah, well, why am I here? And so making sure right people are there, making sure you have the goals set for the meeting. You can have big goals, and that's fine, but you got to have something like, hey, when we leave this meeting, we're making these 2 decisions.
Right.
And then the third thing is I almost always, every board meeting I have the date and time for the next meeting, and then I always send the agenda out, a week in advance, sometimes a couple days in advance. Depends on how my schedule goes. But those help those times not be pointless, because I've sat in a lot of pastoral meetings and I've led, so I'm sorry to my team and people, I've led some meetings where I got done and I felt really good because I got to verbally process some ideas, I got to put stuff out there, but all of my doers are sitting there going like, okay, all right, I just wasted 2 hours of time. Now I'm behind on everything I have to do.
Well, let me let you know in my mind here real quick. And this is sort of like, for people who aren't like this, I'm a time stacker. Okay. So so you have a plane that goes parallel to the ground, and then stacking would be building a function on top of other function. So if I'm doing something, I'm looking at like the inefficiencies to be able to do something while I'm doing something else and kind of stack these different things. It's almost like when you're on the freeway and you're trying to like shave up a quarter of a second per mile, right? It takes miles and miles and miles. That's what time stacking is. It's not a whole lot of time, but you're trying to like make up little tiny pieces. But then the other side of that, when you go to a meeting where nobody's trying to conserve time, it's like stopping off at the rest stop or getting pulled over by the cop. You watch all of your savings go by that nobody cares about. In like 2 seconds, you're like, I worked hours to get that 30 seconds worth of head of schedule, and then you pissed it away in one meeting.
Yeah. We, when I first started at the church, I think it was my second or third round of board members that I had. I don't know if you're familiar with the DISC assessment, but people that are I's, that's me, are very much people. They like to talk, like that. That's a high value to them, is to include people in conversation, engage people that way. I had 6 I's at the table.
Oh, shit.
Myself, 5 other board members, and then I had a C, which is a very detailed person that is a clock manager that wants to get crap done and get out. And then I had an S. So the S just wanted to make sure everybody was happy. And I realized I was having board meetings. They were going till 10, 11 o'clock at night. We were having a blast. But my one guy who was a C, he was ready to be like, everybody up against the wall, I'm shooting you all. Like, he was so done with all that. And we were like, what? You don't feel a part of the team? You don't feel part of the family? You're not feeling the love? You know, like, and he was like, no, I only have this window. I think it's valuable what we're doing, but I don't need 45 minutes on what's going on in your homes. And like, not that I don't care, but in this, like, I'm purposed for this. And he said it nicely. And so I had to make him timekeeper for the meetings, and he would look at me like, Pastor,
he's my boy. Whoever that is, I love him.
He had to do that role for me, because you put 6 eyes at a table. We are going to feel real good about the meeting, and we are going to love each other, but we are getting zero
Can we
done.
make people wear name tags with their letters, so I kind of know this going into it?
So super funny is Dave Ramsey's Ramsey Solutions and all that stuff. They have everybody do a DISC assessment when they start there, and they actually, on their office, either cubicle or wall or entrance, that has their nameplate, their title, and then their DISC assessment.
Nice. That's helpful.
So that every leader knows. I heard, I think it was Chris Hogan talk about it, who's on Dave's team. He said that, he goes, it's super imperative to have that, because as a leader, I can go in and I can see, oh, this person's a C. I don't need to go in and ask how their kids are doing. They really don't care that I care. They want to go in and go, I need to come in and I need to have my facts lined up, because they want to know that I've measured twice before I'm asking them to cut here. And, you know, or somebody that's an S, they might need a little bit of my time, and they may need to verbally process through something I'm asking them to do. They're not being annoying. They just want to make sure everybody's okay, and they want to make sure there's peace and copacetic, and am I understanding this? But it's helpful to know that. And then the I need to go in and be like, how was your weekend? What'd you do? You know, I may care, I may not care, but that's going to lead into a healthy response for them when I go, hey, you know, I really need you to get that report to me by noon. Oh, no problem. Thanks so much for coming in, stopping by. And then, you know, so it's one of those things, and I've used a little bit of it with our team at Bridge of Hope. I did DISC assessment, I think, back in 2015, and I've had people do them periodically as they've joined the team. 70% of the population's an S. Falls into that. They just want everybody to get along. They kind of don't want to rock the boat too much. It's, you know, copacetic. Let's keep everybody. I think it's the S stands for serendipity, I think, or something like that. They want to know that Joe's okay. You good? Okay, if you're good, I'm good. Sally's good. Doesn't matter if we do anything, but we're all okay. And I'm an ID, so I want to have a party, but the D's want to get crap done that's significant and fun, and you know, I want to blow something up while we're having fun. So.
All right.
Anyway, I don't know. We got off on a DISC assessment tangent, but ultimately, I think that's how you, whether you're piecing together a meeting or whether you're looking at your team, knowing the players helps, because you get the wrong people on the bus and you try and have a meeting or you're trying to accomplish something, and you get 2 D's on a team, they'll drive each other nuts, because they want to dominate the conversation. They want to drive. They want to give all the due dates. They want to be in charge, and you can't have that, because they'll stab each other, and it won't be pretty.
Yeah. So when I see meetings, I don't necessarily think the strategy for a meeting is to accomplish anything, or at least any of the meetings that I, get through it seems like to be the objective, and especially the ones that have all of that, tradition in on it, and it's just for the show of. Rather, you experience some of that?
I took a whole class on Robert's Rule of Order.
Okay.
And that's like, can I have a motion? Can I have a second? Can I call the question? Can I, like? And I get they did that like in the 1820s, but like I'm such a pragmatic and practical leader when it comes to that stuff. I'm just like, why all the red tape? Like, we've gone around the table, everybody said their piece. This is what we're gonna do. And
so if in any of those meetings, has anybody ever not done the first and not done the second? Has that been like a filter that kept something from happening?
I've been in one meeting. It was my very first network conference, and they got into a discrepancy So the Ohio Ministry Network was trying to push, they were trying to expand the presbytery. It was all old white guys, and they were trying to expand it to include some of our ethnic minorities and some women, but they were trying to do that by creating positions and demanding that they be filled in there. And the discussion on the floor was, well, if this is a spiritual position, it should have spiritual qualifications. It shouldn't matter whether they're white, black, polka dotted, or striped. Shouldn't matter whether they're a boy or a girl. At the end of the day, like, these are the biblical qualifications. It's a spiritual position. Let them cast that resume, a spiritual resume. We don't need to do that. And our superintendent was doing a great job at trying to help along, but it was getting a little chippy. I mean, there's some people, I was like, these guys are going to, and, but at the end of the day, there's a lady that stood up and she said, look, do I think we need women in leadership? Absolutely. Do I think we need minorities in leadership? Absolutely. But if you want to create a position so that I can be your token lady and you can have me in a picture on your website to say that you're diverse, you don't understand how this works. And you're not supposed to applaud, right? There's everything. You're supposed to applaud on the inside until the gavel goes or whatever. Like, there's all these rules that everybody was applauding, and it was a very provocative meeting in that sense. And you could cut the tension with a knife. That's the only time I've been in there where the rules sort of helped, if that makes sense, and it helped us chart a course to a much healthier place, I think, in the future. But that initial rollout was not rolled out in the way I thought. I think they got caught a little flat-footed and that sort of stuff. That's the only time I've ever been in anything like that, where it was like, most of the time when you have to use the rules, it's really not good for your organization.
Right.
Like today, it was a blessing to be boring. Because they had done 2.5 months of vision casting. They traveled to every area in Ohio. They shared with every pastor, here are the resolutions. They made a 35-minute video. This is why we're doing it. It was to expand some leadership stuff. It was changing the way we do a couple things, but it all makes sense. We're growing. The organization's growing, so we need to have, instead of having 4 areas, we need to have 7 instead of having, like, all that stuff. But we had to change our bylaws to do it. So they did their due diligence and went around. And so by the time we got to the business, it was like, next thing, like, we had all heard it. We had our conversations. We had done. So they did a really good job on the front end selling it. But when you get into some of those formalities, this is my whole thing. If you have to use it, you're in trouble. Yeah, I mean, ship is sunk if you got to use it. If you haven't done the job of vision casting up front, you'll end up in a spot where it's just not healthy. And then, today it was great that it was boring because we were unified in it. We had all heard it. We were all on board. There was no one that even got up to the microphone to say, I disagree with this. Right. It was, somebody spoke in favor and we all went, all right, can we vote?
Right.
So,
well, and you think like city council meetings or places that if you didn't have like the tradition of how things were gone down, it would probably be chaos, right?
Right. Yeah. So you have to have some sort of rules. I get that. You got to have a penalty box in hockey and you got to have flags in football. I just think somebody needs to do an updated version of it.
I agree.
If that makes sense. So, like even ours, like I will say at the beginning of our business meeting, we use a modified set of Robert Rules of Order, which basically means I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing my best. So please don't yell at me if I forget to do a second or opposed by the same sign or whatever. It's not my forte. Like I just want to be like, hey, do you guys want to do this? Okay, let's go.
I'm with him.
That's my new rule.
He's gonna give me the short version. I'm with him.
Yeah, but I think it's so. It frustrates the. So you have two sides to this, right? You have to create a system in which there are checks and balances, and you have to create a system that outlives the leader. So you create these systems with red tape and voting and accountability and all this stuff. And it bottlenecks stuff, and it really can create some detraction from all that. And then you can create a different system. A lot of times you start a business, and I'm the boss, and that's what we're gonna do. My dad used to say to us growing up, "This isn't a democracy. You don't get a vote. This is what we're gonna do." So you have both of those, and you have variations of models, and so there's certainly some health in some of this stuff. But sometimes when the systems outweigh the vision, it just bottlenecks everything up, and then it leads to disappointment. It leads to frustration. Look at us putting a little bow on this disappointment, frustration. It leads to all that, and so it's actually healthy for it to be boring. as much as I hated it to be boring,
Right.
like it was healthy because they casted a great vision. They did a great job answering everybody's questions. So we showed up and we're like, can we just do this now? Like they had to go through the pomp and circumstance and some of the formalities of everything, but it was a foregone conclusion what was going to happen. There was like, I didn't come into the meeting going, man, I wonder what's going to happen today.
Right.
So,
and you only watch C-SPAN for 1 or 2 times to know that it is freaking
right.
everywhere.
And even in Congress too.
Yeah. Here's a 9,000 page document, and we're going to talk about it for a week and a half. All right.
Yeah,
That's
stupid.
cool.
Stupid.
If you can write a summary, let's do that version.
Yeah. Wasn't it? I think it was Ted Cruz when he was running for president said that we should pass a law that every bill has to be only 1 page or something like that. Like exactly. If you can't explain it in 1 page,
Yes.
it's too complicated.
Right.
But you get lawyers involved with stuff, and you get insurance companies involved with stuff, and you get all this stuff, and you end up with a 9,000 page document that nobody's read and nobody understands. And then, well, yeah, we just got to approve it to see what's in it. To quote a famous politician.
How to Get Doug on a Rant by Joe Daniels.
But I don't know. I'm all for simplifying things, but not at the expense. Obviously, like there has to be, like I know Bridge of Hope's going to go through a morph in our systems. Like when we start talking about expansion and having another location, like certain things, like not everybody's going to know everybody. Like you can't elect deacons at that point. You can elect them at the local body, but for a ministry council or presiding body to be over both locations, like how do you do that? And what does that look like? And churches wrestle with that stuff all the time. But it's good problem. It's growing problems, but we're going to have to look at that. And our, bylaws are from 1950, whatever, and haven't been updated, but maybe once to amend 1 or 2 things. And so it's almost like, all right, well, we just need to start fresh because we're going to do something brand new. And I'm looking at that, in the next 2 to 3 years and going, all right, I have an opportunity to take out all the stuff that's boring and pomp and circumstance because I have to, and let's really make this function and work, that even if I got ran over by a bus tomorrow, this is a healthy document that's going to lead the church into the future, regardless, without all the red tape and with the ability to step into the vision.
Yeah,
and all that
and
stuff.
honestly, if you keep certain people that wanting to be part of that deal, because I would want nothing to do with it, but you'd probably want me to be involved in some things to have that force being pushing on it. But if I don't want to be anywhere near it, you're going to miss that, right?
Yeah. That's the whole thing. And that's the tension, right? So the best people and some of the people that will help push forward won't get involved with stuff that is red tape, antiquated, stuck, because it's like, well, it's been there. I'd rather just
too
go
much
over
stuff
here.
to do. Yeah, I mean, I can't run at that speed.
I asked the previous general superintendent of the Assemblies of God, I jokingly call him the Pentecostal Pope, Dr. George Wood, did our 75th birthday in New Jersey, at the church I was at in New Jersey, and I had an opportunity to have a conversation with him. Great guy. The Assemblies of God is the largest Pentecostal denomination in the world. Just to give you an idea, it's like something like 75 million adherents worldwide, 14,000 churches. I mean, it's a ton of people and churches and all that stuff attached to it. And I asked Dr. Wood, so there was a big push, and I'm going to use a word here that's not going to make sense. There's a big push to plant churches, and I say that a lot, and a lot of people are like, what does that mean? Start businesses. There's a big push for the entrepreneurial wing of the church to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we have this church, and it's been here in the community 60 years, but it's got 10 people left, and they can't figure out who's on first and who's on second and how to change the color of the carpet. Let's just start another church because we don't have to deal with all the sacred cows and all the headaches and everything else. And so there's this huge push for that. But there's some established churches. Bridge of Hope's almost 70 years old. It's taken 8 years to really shift the things that needed to shift. But you have those there. So I said to him, I was like, we have all these programs and all this emphasis and all this money flowing into starting new churches. And I was like, what about the established churches that are really trying to, turn the Titanic? And yeah, it takes some time and it takes some patience and it takes some of the right people. I said, what about them? And he grinned. He had to be in his 70s at this point. Grinned and he said, well, he goes, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it's easier to have a baby than it is to raise the dead. And I was like,
ouch.
Wow. But he's spot on correct. Right? Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with businesses or people for that matter that it's like, all right, I mean, you're picking out your coffin and you've signed your death certificate for this. Like, why do I want to be involved? Like, right. You want me to come here, Pastor Andre said this weekend, there's three types of churches, or three types of pastors. There's undertakers, caretakers, and risk takers. And he said, you don't want to be an undertaker. They're only good for the dead. Caretaker just helps you maintain what you got. And then the risk takers push us forward by faith into the future. And I thought that was a great kind of quip for that. But when you look at business, that's true. When you look at, the new series, Bar Rescue, is going to come back on. John Taffer's doing how to reopen in COVID, which I'm super excited for. But, you look at these business leaders, you look at churches, you look at all this stuff, and they have the same problems, right? You have somebody, this is my daddy's business, and, I just can't say no to that, and I can't do this. And it's like, all right, well, you're just waiting around to sign the death certificate. Like, you're essentially dead because you're not willing to do anything. Yeah, but it's been in the family. And then, ready, that's business, right? And it's daddy's bar. Church, I've been here for 40 years, and it's just the way we've always done it. And, my grandma was here, and okay, you might as well sign the death certificate and move on. Then you have the caretaker. We kind of do it this way, and it pays the bills, and we get it done. And, it's not perfect, but, and that's Joe, and we just put up with Joe, right. And business, I do the same thing in a church and the same thing in a cutting edge business, same thing in a cutting edge church. It doesn't matter. And people are the same way, the same language enters in, the same thought process, same mentality. And so, whether you're dealing with the we got on from boredom of business to frustration, disappointment to, I think in reality, you and I want to see things press forward. And so anything that's going to make me have to be an undertaker or a caretaker, I'm like, forget it. I don't want to be a part of that.
For the same reasons as the other stuff. Exactly. You're going to get stuck there forever.
And the thing is, though, those organizations, those businesses, those people, those churches, they need risk takers to come in and say, all right, put the casket away. If we're going to do this, we got to do this, this, and this. And if you're willing to do that, we can do that. I spent my first 18 months at Bridge of Hope having one conversation with most of the church. So most of the church were like, Pastor, I got boots older than you. And I'm like, I get it. Yeah, I'm 28. My conversation was, help me to build a church for your grandkids. That was my pitch. Like, help me to build a church. You're going to die. Help me to build it. And I was real straight up about it. And I was like, what do you got, 10 years? 50? That's fine. You can hold on and you can have church your way for the next 10 years, but then your grandkids won't have anything. Right. Help me build something that they want to come to. And that pitch really, for a few people, they didn't care for it, but the vast majority signed on. And that we did a big kids renovation. We did, and I emphasized that portion those first couple of years. And it was important to do that because I'm like, listen, we can either march towards death. You guys can have church the way you've always had it. It'll be great. And I said, and I'll sign the death certificate. We'll bury you. It'll be a great ceremony. And then I'll do all this. Right. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to waste my time. I think I asked them, I said, look, I'm 28 and 26. Like, my wife was 26 at the time. I said, are we wasting our time? Because I don't want to go to a church that I don't want to go to. I'm not going to raise my kids to be the only two kids in church. Like, if you guys are wanting me to just come in and pat you on the head and come pray for you at the altar and call you during the week, like, you got the wrong guy.
Right. And thankful that, in the business setting, part of like identifying a toxic or an apathetic part of your business, we don't really fall in love with it. We can put a bullet in its head and move on pretty quick because there's 5,000 other things that we can go to. When you're kind of like, when there's a tether and there's an anchor to you, like, and you're keeping something alive that should have been dead a really long time ago. I mean, you don't want to be the bearer of the bad news that, we're going to have to put her down, because that's a sad moment when, what was the dog that they did that to, Old Yeller. So Old Yeller dies, we cry. Yeah.
They talk about sacred cows and stuff like that. Like, I told them, I was like, I will find them and I will kill them. Yes. Like, I have to, because they're going to pop their head up 5 years from now and everybody's going to go, oh no, we did a killer egg hunt. Our egg hunt was awesome. They've been doing it for 25 years. We had over 1,000 people show up for our egg hunt. It cost us, I don't know, like $5,000. We'd had like 100 volunteers. We did prizes. We would go to every which way. We gave away bikes and all sorts of stuff. It was an awesome event. But you know who came to the event, Joe?
Who's that? Everybody
from every other church. And I'm like, love you. I don't need to swap deck chairs. Like, you're already going to a good church. Like, by all means, bless you, keep you. Awesome. I want people to come through the doors at an event like that would never come to a service and are coming because they don't have the ability to put on an egg hunt themselves, or this is a really nice event for the community, and I have an opportunity to build a bridge to somebody that's never going to come hear me preach, never going to come hear a worship song, never going to set foot any other way. And then we had 500 people lined up waiting to come in. They had all their kids. They were ready to go. We had thousands of pieces of candy. I mean, we were ready to go. I go up and down the line. Now they have to fill out a registration card. I'm shaking everybody's hand. Oh, I go to this church. I go to that church. You're one of 9 egg hunts this weekend. This stuff. I was a little like, I told the staff, I was like, I think egg hunt's done. People looked at me. I had 1 or 2 people like, Pastor, you can't do that. We've done it for 25 years. I'm like, I refuse to waste $5,000. I refuse to waste 100 volunteers. I refuse to waste all the extra staff hours that we put in to all this stuff. And the currency of going around to businesses and asking them for stuff. Like, I'm just not going to do that. We can invest that money back into the schools. We can invest that money back into our ministry. We can do so many different things with that. That'd be way better than that, because we're just one of 9 egg hunts that are happening at all the other churches. People are coming around going to them. Like, why do I want to do that? It's kind of like from a business sense, if everybody's coming in and going, well, I already bought my computer, but I just want to come check out your products. It doesn't do you any good. They ain't going to buy one from you. They already bought one.
Yeah.
And, so from that standpoint, when you start looking at some of that stuff, you have to be willing to make the hard call. Those are the meetings I love to be a part of. When we sit in there and we go, all right, we're going to kill this. And you watch, people get emotional when you're killing their but Pastor, this is my cow. I had to kill Saturday nights. I had the whole conversation with you. That was my baby. But I couldn't let it become a sacred cow, or I'd be just like the people that I get frustrated with.
That's right.
I had to execute it myself, and it was sad. But I threw a funeral, but it was great. And it was a healthy thing for the church. It was a healthy thing for the staff. And, yeah.
Yeah, Rick said, pouring oil from your vessel.
Yeah. So I think ultimately I want a system, whether in business meeting, whether it's a business, church, whatever, I want a system that can get crap done, doesn't get hung up in the red tape, but one that's going to help. So I think there's a difference in system. Like, some systems are there to protect us, and other systems should be there to propel us. And I think that's where the fighting kind of happens, is we create all these systems because, well, so-and-so did that before, so we had to make a motion, we had to do this, and we had to put that in our bylaw so that we don't get hurt again. Well, the last pastor did this, or the last person did that, or, my previous boss, he did this, so we don't do that here anymore. I'm like, well, you're just trying to escape pain. That's not how to build a business. That's not how to build a life. That's not how to build a church. What are we doing to propel ourselves forward? Like, we can play the protect game, and we can try and protect this from everything. And yes, is there some wisdom in, all right, yeah, we probably need some accountability in the finances so pastor doesn't run off to Costa Rica and buy a house. Like, yes, there has to be some health there.
Well, does somebody go around and audit it and say, why do we do that thing right there? And if nobody can answer it, we don't do it anymore, right?
I'm usually the auditor in that sense. But think about it from a business standpoint, though. Like, you've run into this, I'm sure yourself, and I'm sure you've run into it with others, or even on a personal level. At the end of the day, Joe's responsible for Joe. And whatever company, yeah, you may have an employee that doesn't like doing something or thinks that's a bad idea, but you're the ultimate, you get to pull the trigger regardless. And from the way our bylaws are set up, as pastor, I'm technically the president of the corporation, and so I do the hiring, firing, vision casting, etc. So I have the leeway to do that. Our board is set up to provide financial accountability and some stability in making some of the bigger, broader decisions, kind of board of directors-ish in that sense. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I've had 2 conversations early on where I was like, listen, I didn't leave my family in New Jersey, and I didn't leave all that stuff behind to come here and just be another church. Like, I want to change this community. And I know it's going to sound bold and it's going to sound brash, and you're going to say, oh, Pastor, you're just idealistic. You're 29, you're 30 years old at this time. Just where do you get a little wet behind the ears? And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Welcome to ministry. Welcome to. I'm sure you heard that in business. Like, just wait a little bit. You're so idealistic. And those people I want to throat punch in the worst way, because I'm like, isn't that why we do this? like if I just did this to make money, or I just did this for the prestige, or I did this so people would walk around and call me pastor. Like, if I just did it for that, like, how lame is that? Right. Anyway, I don't know.
Hi, how are you doing?
Woo!
All right, we're going to pause you, and I want you to win my money.
Yeah, we need to do that. I got on a whole tear.
Why do we do this? So you can win money. 330-595-1600. You call. You can guess a six digit. Yeah, let's do a 6 digit thing. a 3-digit code and win $900 and a pair of AirPod Pros. There's 3 clues. 1, I got the number off of a clock. 2, partner, and 1 even, 2 odd, and it's probably not a 0. There's probably not a 0 in the number.
You want to call in $900, right?
Yeah.
And AirPod Pros.
Right. Next week's going to be the 1K. That's going to be an interesting, crazy time.
1,000 smackers next week.
Are you okay? I'm kind of worried about.
Oh, I'm good, man.
Yeah, you good?
Yeah. You know what happens? So when I get in those bored moments we were talking about, like where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying, and they're reading resolutions or whatever, like, and it was warm in there too. I'm like, at least turn the AC down, like help us out because it's warm. We're all, eyelids are getting heavy. I'm like, I need to go get another cup of coffee if I'm going to make it through this. My brain goes to those spots, and then I start punching notes in, like where I'm like, oh yeah, and you just start getting reminded of certain things, like sitting in there, like, certain resolutions, took me back to, I remember my first annual business meeting, how nervous I was to run it because I'd never run a business meeting before, or my first board meeting for that matter. Now you're a pastor, right? So you're supposed to pray at things. Well, I was so nervous about this board meeting, and they told me about how they did board meetings for hours, and I was like, we are not sitting for hour-long. I can't stand long meetings. So I go into this board meeting. We're going to do it after church. I finish the board meeting in 40 minutes, and I am pumped. We got through this meeting. The wives were all waiting for us. We're going to go out to lunch. We're going to be fine. Like, we mowed through everything we need to mow through. I had a little agenda. We get done, and one of the older guys puts his arm around me. He says, Pastor, I just want to let you know, normally we like to pray at our board meetings, and I totally forgot. I was so nervous, but you look at some of those things. So when I sit in those moments, like sometimes my brain goes back to that spot, or I'll see somebody I haven't seen in a while, and it'll take me back to a conversation I had with them. And so my brain was spinning on some of these things. I had a lot of people that came up and like, oh man, we see the Facebook post about the church. It seems like so many cool stuff. Tell me about it. And so I got to rehash some of that. And so that gets my vision muscle pumping, and it gets my memory muscle going too, where I'm like, wow, that was really cool. And we have come a long way, and can't believe it's been 8 years. And so that's where all this is coming from, is I've been sitting around pondering it, and I get to release it now into the microphone.
Yeah, I feel like I'm lifting it from your soul. I'm your psychologist.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? How does it make you feel?
If you could lay down, I'll lay down right here. No, it's good. I think it's moments like that though that help us recalibrate, remind you why you do what you do. When you had your moment where you said no to Pitney Bowes. When you have those moments where the anchor gets dropped deeper, and you're just like, I remember why I'm in this. And today, I just the last 2 days, just connecting with guys and stuff like that, it just reminded me, because you get to hear other people, and you get to hear their passions, you get to hear their visions, and how's your church doing, and how's this going, and how's the ministry there, and some guys are doing awesome stuff, and everybody's trying to figure stuff out, but there were certain guys that, you get a glimpse into some things, and you're just like, man, like, I want to help you. and then other guys, I'm like, man, I want to be around you. And then, other people I'm standing with, I'm going, all right, yeah, it's the same thing you told me 5 years ago. Like, and you start having some of that, and it's not a better than or less than, but it just helped me sink my anchor a little deeper. Like when I was sitting there, I'm going, yeah, I am called to this. Yeah, I am going to push harder at this, and I do need to risk more. And it helps you sink that, anchor a little bit deeper. I'm sure when you get around other business people and you're just like, that is so lame. I'm gonna re-up my risk-taking ability just because I've been around you, and I feel like you've never taken a risk in your life. I'm gonna take one for you when I leave here.
And I feel almost selfish sometimes, because when I'm in that moment and I'm comparing it, like, okay, I hope that I never make anybody as bored as that meeting just made me, right? And if I take it away, I'm like, are the standards just off? Should I be enjoying that? Am I just weird? And then I'm like, no, never do that to another human being.
One year they live tweeted during the meeting, and I don't know who they turned on the tweets for, but I was giggling the whole time because they were just using sarcasm and snark and stuff, and they were like making fun of the product, and it was so funny, but it made it more engaging. I knew what was going on. So purpose, accomplished. And some of that stuff, when you get into that space, I think, they're designing some of it to inspire you. Like some of the videos were super powerful. And, we had a service last night, and we had some devotional time yesterday morning, and some of that stuff was super inspiring. But most of it's like you're getting all the reports. This is how much money we spent on this, and this is what we did with that, and this is why we did this. And it was awesome. We gave almost $10 million to missions last year, helping people all around the world. That's all, every church in Ohio through the Assemblies of God. And I was like, that was crazy. That was $2 million more than we've ever done. And we did it during a pandemic year. And so that was a good cheering part, and that was exciting. But, for the most part, you sit through that stuff and you're just like,
yep. Right.
So, I just ranted for 50 minutes, didn't I?
You did, and I let you. I just sat back and said, this is a beautiful thing. He's going to feel so much better when he gets that out.
This is therapy. You guys who are listening, this is therapy for me, so thank you.
Yes. I saw it on your face when you walked in here that you needed to get that out off your chest, and now you can go with the rest of the week being unloaded.
Yeah, unloaded. It was funny, and my wife will appreciate that I didn't have to do it to her. So.
Yes, go Sam.
No, it's good. We need to have a show and bring our wives back on. They haven't been on in a while, and that's always a fun one. And now that we have the couches and stuff in the back,
right,
we'll have to plan to do one of those. We have a couple of guests coming up that's going to be fun. We have the beginning of June. I'm not sure if it's 8th or the 10th. We're going to have a friend of mine, Sam T. His last name's Thevenigam, but everybody calls him Sam T. Business guy, has his own network, just released his first book, and travels around doing business coaching, consulting, leadership. Great guy. He's going to be on via Zoom with us. Excited. I've been going back and forth with his assistant. And then God willing, Israel's crazy right now. Lebanon started attacking. They're getting hit on all sorts of sides, Hezbollah and Hamas. That could be a whole different show for a different day. But provided Ben Gurion Airport stays open, Rabbi Walicki, my dear friend, is hopefully traveling to the States and going to get to be at the church on June 23rd and then here with us in studio hopefully on the 22nd.
Sweet.
So I'm looking forward to that. We originally talked about doing a conversation on public versus private education because coming from the Orthodox Jewish community, they're big on private education. And so talking about the ups and downs, I said, this would be perfect. Maybe we should even have Deb join for the show because it'd be really interesting to get a teacher's perspective. But I'm thinking that topic may switch since Israel's pretty much at war right now. Right. We could probably talk about some current events from somebody who lives in Bet Shemesh, just outside of Jerusalem. Had a rocket go 2 miles from his house and stuff like that. Probably has a firsthand view that probably needs to be heard. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully that'll happen. And then I'm trying to get a couple of my buddies on and stuff. It's going to be fun. My brother I almost brought my brother with me because he's been with me the last 2 days.
Why didn't you?
He had a thing he had to do back at his church in Cleveland. And so it was fun. He came down Sunday and we hung out for the last 3 days. That made all the business stuff worth it and got to introduce him to a bunch of people that I knew, which I love. If I wasn't a pastor, my wife would tell me I'd be a tour guide.
Yes.
And so I loved this is so-and-so, and I'd introduce him to this person and that person. So I loved getting to do that, which was a ton of fun. And I hope some of those connections, enrich his life and ministry and stuff. So we're just titling this Doug's Rant, right?
Doug's verbal vomit everywhere.
I mean, there was some nuggets in there.
There was. In vomit, there is sometimes.
Yeah. Chunky, a little wet, but as long as you pull it up, shake it around.
Chunky vomit nuggets. This is terrible. Sorry for ruining dinners.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's good. But Rick, I love you. It's good. Rick's always watching. Usually Steve watches, a couple others I see on there every week. So we want to talk about Thursday. What should we preview Thursday? I'll be more sane on Thursday.
Okay. Well, what should we? Let's do something a little bit different. We haven't done like a conspiracy theory, Bigfoot. I did haunted houses. Let's do like hauntings and ghosts. You want to do hauntings and ghosts?
Yeah, totally.
I'd love to like battle that out a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. The conspiracy stuff that I get though is all COVID related, all government related, and that stuff. I get bucket loads of those videos from people in church on the left and the right. Up until Trump went out of office, I would get all the ones on the left while he was in office, and he's martial law and all that sort of stuff. Okay. And then I would get all the ones on the right now. Some of those some are partially believable. There has to be a hint of that believability. But yeah, we can definitely do some fun ghost stories. And Sam and I did a ghost tour in Philly. Super fun.
Yeah.
You don't actually. It's not like you were doing with your infrared.
Yeah,
it wasn't like that. Basically, this guy showed up in like 17th century like garb and stuff, and had a little lantern and his hat and stuff. It was the middle of July. He had to be sweating. I was in like a button down and shorts, and but you meet him at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and they walk you around Old City. And they tell you so-and-so was murdered here. There was a big house fire here. They give you like the underground history. And then they give you some like, some people believe that this house was haunted, this thing happened. And either the first mansion in Philadelphia that had an indoor toilet, the whole family died of dysentery because where the toilet came out is where their water came in.
Yeah.
And so like it was fun getting like, it was not like Ben Franklin did this or like whatever. It was like the history nobody knows. And so it was a fun tour in that sense, but it was all around like death and murder and fires and that kind of stuff.
All the good stuff, all our best light.
Yeah. So yeah,
we're gonna do another ghost hunt at the Reformatory in August, where the prison that had the Shawshank Redemption, and it should be interesting. Because Science Joe loves this stuff. He loves it.
So what's your obviously you have infrared. So what's your take on it? You know what?
Yeah,
if you want to hear Joe's take, you're gonna have to.
Yeah, exactly. But it will be interesting because I've got theories that are based on other theories. So Rick DeVito says, "Are ghosts real?" You're just gonna have to wait to find out.
He said yes with exclamation points.
He does
afterwards.
believe in.
So you have to call in Rick for the show. Yeah, but so we can do that. We'll have some fun with that because there's definitely give you some Bible verses for some of that stuff, which will be fun.
Oh, you didn't get.
I didn't even do that today. I went on such a rant. I didn't even throw a Bible verse in. I had to go
not
repent.
praying before meetings, not connecting it to Bible verses.
Joe, I'm just going to hell. I don't know.
I shall save your soul.
That's good. Well, thanks for listening to my rant today. And if you're concerned about me, pray for me. We'll see you guys on Thursday for Ghost Stories with Joe and Doug.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.